Okay, and we are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Unsolicited Feedback, the show where we don't sugarcoat leadership and we definitely don't rely on hope to get results because let's be honest, hope is not a business strategy. I'm stepping in today as your first time co-host here to support the conversation, keep the energy high, and make sure you walk away with practical insights you can actually use. I'm Paul Krider of Krider Creatives, a strategic storytelling consultant and presentation coach. I help leaders communicate with more clarity, confidence, and impact on stage, on camera, inside their companies, and on LinkedIn Lives like these. And leading the charge for these podcasts, as always, is my friend, client, and your host, Chuck Knabusch. Chuck?
Hey, thanks, Paul. With over 40 years of operational leadership experience across the military, corporate America, and now as an entrepreneur, I bring the kind of real-world insight that cuts through the noise and gets things done. If you're joining us live, drop your questions and thoughts in the chat. We want this to feel, far more conversational. And if you're catching the replay, you can always reach out to me directly at chuck@1310.com. That's Chuck at 13ten.com. Let's dive into today's topic because your time matters. And this one is loaded with takeaways.
Yeah, it sure is. Today's topic is something called leader standard work. Leader standard work. For those who are paying attention and out there and listening to this, and for later, drop into the comments right now what you believe this means in terms of leadership from an operational standpoint, right? Now, Chuck, they're going to come up with their ideas on their own, but you're the expert here. So give us a sense, an overview of what leader standard work is.
Well, let me start with a story. A lot of new supervisors will go ahead, they've just been selected to go ahead and be a supervisor. And the first thing the organization does is they put them through training as to, how to go ahead and talk to subordinates, how to motivate people, what emotional intelligence is, a lot of stuff like that. But what they don't tell that new supervisor, that new leader, is what they're supposed to be doing. So frequently we go ahead and see these new leaders. Let's say they're on a production floor in a manufacturing environment, because that's ultimately my background. What they're going to go ahead and do is they're going to grab a cart of materials and they're going to move it from one spot to wherever it's needed. Why? Because it's active. They feel like they're providing a value and it's something that they can do and they feel good about themselves. The problem with that is there probably is a team of individuals who are supposed to be moving that cart. What that leader needed to go ahead and be doing is saying, they can move it, but afterwards they need to be asking, well, what prevented the team who's supposed to move that cart from moving it? Did they not know that somebody needed materials? Were the materials not available? Was there some obstacle in that material movement team's way? And it's like that. I don't care whether you're a first line supervisor or you're a chief operating officer or CEO, founder, any type of business leader. Generally, when we get that position, we're not given a list of what we're supposed to do. We may be given some responsibilities in the job description, but very few organizations really list out leader standard work. But those that do, they find that the transition of that new leader is so much easier, so much faster, because they understand exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Not how they're supposed to do it, but what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, that's a great point. And actually, one of our guests, Robin Kramer, she actually chimed in with her definition. And she says the standard work that is regularly performed or should be by leaders.
Absolutely.
Which she's spot on.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, and as Robin points out, and as I'm hearing, and again, I'm an outsider here, so I'm going to come from an outsider's perspective. This seems like the minutia, everyday stuff that is sometimes not communicated all that effectively, or just presumed that it's being done. Is that right?
Well, it's not just the minutia. Sometimes we're going to be talking about the big categories, and really there's three big categories that I kind of lump leader standard work into. The top one is innovation and marketing. that's where the profit of the organization is made. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Again, we all kind of know there's always administrative tasks to any leader, and that's a cost to the organization. And finally, kind of the sales and production, which is where the daily or where the weekly or the monthly revenue comes from. And that's where we're going to go ahead and focus today, Paul.
Awesome. I think we need to drill in a little bit here, Chuck, because someone like me, and I run a business too, in part, some of it fine, and some of it probably needs some operational tweaking. And I'm sure that we can learn a lot. I know that I will. Okay. So if we're going to drill in a little bit here, can you help us bring sort of that macro definition into sort of a micro look?
Absolutely, Paul. So I've come up with a diagram, and we're only going to touch the tip of the iceberg today because we don't have time for everything. But so this is what my diagram looks like. And if you'll remember, we had the top row was all about innovation, and the middle row was all about cost and administration, and then the bottom row was all about sales and production. That's where we're going to talk today.
Hey, Chuck, I know that we're gonna dive into these things in detail. Is there a way that you can zoom that in so that our audience can see that a little more up close?
That would be difficult, but we're going to have a QR code at the end where they can go ahead and get a document, and they can have a copy of this for themselves, because I understand.
Yeah.
Eye chart.
Good. And audience, just so you know, these are the things that we're thinking about as operational specialists. We're going to bring all this stuff to you for a low-hanging experience that you can engage. Okay. Awesome, Chuck. Continue, please.
So what are we really going to talk about today? And it's an easy one. I understand everybody probably knows this. It's performance management and execution. But what they don't realize is realistically, a leader should only be spending about 20% of their time in this area, because there's a lot of other areas that leaders need to be spending their time. And if they're spending 100% of their time in this area, then they're probably doing the work rather than leading the work. If, whether that's firefighting or, putting something together, delivering services or whatever else. But realistically, what we're talking about here are, we need to understand what our KPIs are, our key performance indicators or key performance outcomes, so we know exactly what's happening and whether it's happening. We need to have those performance metrics in place. We need to be able to visually manage what's going on, whether that's in a spreadsheet or looking at our calendar saying, our calendar is full today, or it's not full today. I don't have any clients to talk to. So again, we can do this very, very visually. We can go ahead and do this by walking out to what we would say in the lean world would be Gemba, or the place where work happens. So it could be in a call center as you're walking around. If the phones aren't ringing and nobody's answering the calls, or if the phones aren't ringing, then maybe something's going right. You don't have problems. But if the phones are ringing and no one's picking them up, you have one kind of problem. But if people are constantly on the phone, they're not able to get to that next call, you have a different kind of problem. So we do need to go ahead and spend quite a bit of our time, about a fifth of our day, fifth of our week, depending on how we want to measure it. But we do need to go ahead and spend time in performance management and execution tasks.
I'm glad that you put a percentage of time on this, because I think that might be, again, from an outsider's perspective, one of the messier, maybe more that leads to disorganization is like, how much time do I spend doing this? There are so many things to do as a business leader, as someone who is working on the operational side. So it's good to know that there is a particular kind of formula to keep in mind. That's a very helpful approach, I think, for our audiences.
And again, it doesn't have to be down to the minute.
Sure.
But I mean, if you're going to, and I do believe in time tracking and kind of understanding where your time is going. But to me, a lot of leaders, they think, hey, I'm being measured on the productivity of my people, or what gets done. Do we get these 3 orders out today? And those are all great measures. But the leader also needs to be measured on leadership type of things. And performance management execution, if they're spending 50% of their day or 80% of their day, or I've seen some cases, and I hate to say it, where the leaders are so busy in meetings that they're not spending any time on performance management or execution issues, that can be a whole different set of problems. So realistically, you do need this as a metric within your arsenal to know whether you're doing a good job or not.
That you brought up something that is a little flabbergasted to me, and maybe I should look in the mirror, because maybe I do this too, but you would think to yourself, like, shouldn't a leader be aware that they are not leading effectively, or they're spending too much time not doing the things that they have read and studied and learned and have been told time and time again? Like, it just seems like such a dissonance kind of relationship.
We all get kind of like that story I set up at the beginning about activity. We all get so used to certain activities, and we think we're adding value because we're active, we're busy, we're constantly going. But are we really doing something that adds value? And ultimately, value creation is only measured by what the customer perceives. So if I'm and I've in my past, in my corporate America life, I've been in meetings 8-10 hours a day. And if I'm doing that while I'm busy, I'm constantly going, I'm tired at the end of the day, but did I really provide value to our customer? And the customer may be the next operation down the line. It may go ahead and be the consumer who's buying the product or service. But ultimately, we need to go ahead and understand, am I just active? Am I spinning my wheels? Or am I really providing value to the organization, to my team, to my customer, in getting some of this stuff done? And that's what we really have to go ahead and start to separate, is activity versus value.
I mean, it seems like such like an immense challenge on one hand, but on the other, when you simplify it in a way that it's easy to digest, it also seems pretty manageable. Do you find in your work when you're consulting with leaders that they have this aha moment, like, oh my gosh, it's not as maddening as I thought it was?
Yeah, but they don't. You're right. Once they kind of see that nugget, that little shiny spot of gold, all of a sudden they say aha. But to get there sometimes, because again, you can't always see the forest through the trees. Old saying, I know.
Yeah.
But it's true. And I learned some of that even when I kind of retired for a year, and said, wow, I gained a whole new perspective, which is one reason I really, really advocate for leaders of all levels to find a mentor, find somebody, whether they're in your business or outside the business, that you can have a conversation with and talk through, because sometimes you need that additional perspective.
Yeah.
I went into one company and they couldn't understand why all their leaders were never where the production was happening, were never fixing the problems. Everybody saw it. Everybody had the KPIs. Everybody could see the performance metrics in the dashboard, but nothing was ever getting fixed. So I happened to take a look at their calendar over like 4 weeks. And I looked at everyone, I think there are 6 or 8 leaders, whatever they had there. And every one of them were in meetings most of the day, 6 to 8 hours of the day. And between meetings, they might have a half hour, but a half hour was not enough time to run out, find out what's going on, and help make that correction for their teams or their staffs. Mm. So again, calendar is a great place to go ahead and start with some of this. But time management, time categorization. So, look at your time, write it down. It can be on a scrap of paper, can be in a spreadsheet, depends on what you want to do. But kind of measure your time and say, okay, how much time did I spend today on performance management and execution? We'll get to all the other categories over the next couple episodes. But just start with this one, because this is the one that provides your organization revenue. This is the one that pays the bills each and every week.
And as you said, this whole 20% of the focus, right? Like a fifth of your time, which is a big chunk of your time.
Absolutely.
So I can absolutely see why this is so critical. I have a question here. So the show is called Unsolicited Feedback, right? Which has a connotation, which is like, hey, you need to hear this whether you've asked for it or not, right? Do you ever find yourself in a room with leaders bringing your expertise to the table and getting sort of this, I didn't ask for this. I didn't, but yeah, why do you think you know this to tell me? You ever feel like you're getting that kind of feedback from people who really need to hear this stuff, whether they want to or not?
Oh, absolutely. Well,
Huh.
and I think it goes even further than that, Paul. A lot of times we see a symptom, even, as a leader, you're a leader, I'm a leader. We see a symptom and we think that's the root cause. But sometimes it takes the ability to step back. And do we always have time? Nope. The next fire is burning, the next customer, the next client's out there saying, hey, I need this, or they're emailing or they're calling us or texting us and saying, hey, I need a slice of your time. And we're not always real good at saying no. So, some of this is just about time management. So yes, a lot of leaders go ahead and say, well, I don't have that problem. They do. If they're willing to step back and really take a breath and understand what's going on in their lot, not just around them, but in their lives too, and say, wow, yeah. And if I improve this a little bit, you'd be amazed at how the dominoes all fall in line.
I'm thinking about so different examples of where this would work. And I'm thinking of, I'm a small business, like capital S small business, right? It's me and some people I bring in to help execute some things, but like it's primarily me. I imagine that leader standard work principles would affect me differently than a larger brand or organization with many players. Can you give me some insight as to small business to large business, how this looks maybe a little different, or where it's primarily the same process?
Well, there's always some variations, but realistically, I think when we go ahead and burn off all the noise, get through everything, get right down to it, it's going to be very, very similar. When we go through all the other elements, another element is firefighting, what I call ad hoc or, the flex time. If you're spending an inordinate amount of time firefighting, whether you're a small business, a solopreneur, or a large corporation, it shows that you've got a bad process. You've got something wrong either with the product quality or the service quality or how it's delivered. So realistically, you need to get that down. And we'll be talking about, a 10%, where that should be, probably about 10%.
Yeah.
And that's the same. As a small business person, Paul, would you think that, you have more than 10% of your time used to go ahead fight fires, emergencies that you have with clients?
It's such a great question.
Something you haven't thought about.
No, not as much as I should, which is what this is all about, right? Like showcasing and putting a spotlight on these. Like, have you thought about that? And if you're leading your company and things are going fine, can you imagine if you were doing these things, how more than fine things would be going, right? Or the other case scenarios, like things are going terribly. Yeah, if you'd made this tweak, you think how much better things would be? Oh, couldn't get any worse. My gosh, right?
But you even have to think about when it is going fine. You have to think out into the future. Okay, all my people know what they're supposed to do, or I know what I'm supposed to do. Hey, it's easy. I'm a solopreneur. So I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. And then I start to grow. I want to scale. We all talk about scale. We want to get bigger. We want more revenue. We're going to need more resources. So you might start by getting a virtual assistant. Well, how are they going to know how to help you if you haven't documented your processes? If they don't know what your performance management expectations are? And you can have a conversation, but how many hours of conversation are you going to have and pay for with a virtual assistant? Or you may hire somebody before they start to become productive. So it's all about documenting those processes, even now while things are working well, so that when it comes time to scale, you can say, here's the notes, here's the process, here's what I need you to go ahead and do to take off my load so I can go ahead and expand in this other direction.
Right. Well, like you said from the beginning here, leader standard work has multiple levels to how to make leadership an operational success. Do you think we've covered everything for that first core 20% circle?
I think we've given a great introduction to it.
Yeah.
I think it's something that most leaders kind of default to. Hey, I understand that I've got to go ahead and be there where the revenue's made, whether that's delivering services or delivering products. I understand I've got to go ahead and measure performance. Does everybody do it? No. But does everybody kind of understand it? For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
Does it mean that we could go ahead and spend another 4 hours, 8 hours on? Absolutely, because we've just touched the surface. And that's really what this is about. If you're interested, I mean, if you've got some more questions about it, you can reach out. Do a little homework. There's a lot of information that's out there. And I'd certainly love to go ahead and help you find that information or provide answers or provide guidance or even that other perspective that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Robin and Rick Forbes is also on here, and he chimed in with an emoji. I actually can't make out what it is right now. He'll chime in with his words maybe later, so we can find out what he means by that. I'm sure it's hilarious because Rick's a good guy. But Robin chimed in again. She said, I agree with creating SOPs. She has a virtual online business management company. So she's finding applicability here, right? Which is not a surprise, Chuck, because like we say from the beginning, like you can't just hope these things go well, right? This is a very clear operational tactic that leaders need to make when it comes to running their business smoothly. You say it, I say it all the time, that these 25, 30-minute podcasts, LinkedIn Lives is never enough time to give all the information that we need. And it's important that our audience knows. You mentioned how to get in touch with you. I know there's 1310.com or chuck@1310.com. But you have that QR code. I think might be a good time to put it up, Chuck. Okay.
Absolutely.
Up, Chuck, I said.
Yeah,
no one up, Chuck. No one up.
I've never heard that before, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got this QR code. And in the QR code, it'll link to a little PDF where you can go ahead and see some of what we talked about today. It'll link to some previous episodes if you have any interest in some of the handouts from that. It'll link to a place where you can go ahead and schedule a 30-minute call with me and all my contact information. So great QR code, a lot of information in it. Go ahead and snap a picture of it. And we'll just keep building as we get more and more episodes. Yeah. The information behind it will keep building also.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Chuck. Rick chimed in that it was an eyeball emoji, and he said that he was peeping in at this, checking us out, that sort of thing. Kind of creepy, Rick, but I like it also. Rick's a good guy. Everyone should meet Rick. And Robin, thank you so much for your participation and chiming in. This is what this is about. Like LinkedIn Live should be a place where no matter where you come in, and some people float in, float out, and we're fine with that. That we want this to be engaging, informative, and entertaining. God forbid, I think it should be all three of those things. But I think, Chuck, that's a wrap, right, for today's unsolicited feedback. Again, a huge thanks to everybody who came in and out, peeped, stuck around for the whole thing. For those who are going to catch the replay later, we appreciate you as well. Again, I'm your co-host, Paul Krider of Krider Creatives. And I want to say, in addition to the storytelling strategy, presentation coaching, so Chuck is doing these podcasts, but Chuck is also a speaker that you can hire to bring in to your event. What was it, in April, I think, Chuck? Was that the Better Business Bureau program you did, right? So Chuck has been working to bring a speaking brand to the table so that folks can certainly listen to his podcasts and digest his content that way. But you can also book him to speak at your next business event on leadership, operational standards, where he can dive even further in both presentations and workshops on leader standard work and other topics, right? So a huge advocate of his. This is why I'm here today. It's been a blast, Chuck. Thank you for letting me be here and support you in this journey. Bringing your insight to life is an honor for me. So thank you.
Paul, it's been great to have you here. Love having someone to kind of riff off of and who can kind of read some of the comments and questions for me. But remember, folks, success doesn't happen through wishful thinking. It takes planning, leadership, and execution, the very things that we talked about today. So don't just listen in, put it to work. Try one thing this week and see how your life shifts for the better.
And they got that QR code earlier.
And if you want to go deeper, absolutely. We've got the QR code. Book a 30-minute strategy chat session. We'd love to hear how you're applying these tools. So drop me a line, throw something out on LinkedIn. Would love to go ahead and hear from you because we're here for you and we get some great inspirations from our audience. So when you lead with purpose, you don't need to lean on hope.
Absolutely true. And until next time, I'm Paul Krider.
And I'm Chuck Knabusch, signing off from Unsolicited Feedback. Let's get back to work.